Most of you aren't subscribed. Make sure to slice the subscribe button, as it helps out the channel. Without further ado, struck by a truck, our protagonist is suddenly transported to a fantasy world, observing mysterious creatures in the night sky. Noting his new sword-like form, he hears a voice in his head, wondering if this is all a hallucination, but reasons that everything feels too real. Realizing this setup is quite unique compared to the stories he's read, he wonders if he has overpowered abilities, pulling up his inventory. With a screen popping up, our protagonist learns he is classified as an intelligent weapon, having skills like regeneration and telekinesis. Admiring his own unique sword body, our protagonist wonders if he's a rare item, only to realize several goblins attempting to pull him out from where he's standing. Not wanting such mindless creatures touching his blade, he glows, scaring the creatures off, but this makes the creatures spit on him. Realizing this means war, our protagonist makes use of his telekinesis, pulling himself out of the ground. Observing the goblins below, our protagonist begins charging at the creatures, easily slaying one, by breaking its crystal core. Upon breaking a core, his sword body glows for a second, only for him to continue to slaughter the remaining goblins. Seeing several screens pop up, our protagonist realizes that he has collected 3 crystals, having destroyed 3 of the goblins' cores. Additionally, he had stolen the goblins' skills, suddenly hearing a voice that asked if he wanted to try out his newly acquired skills. Accepting the offer, our protagonist begins harvesting a leftover goblin core, which upon breaking, he absorbs. Placing himself back into his stand, our protagonist notes how lonely it is without a wielder, vowing to grow stronger, so people would want to use him. At the same time, a mysterious catgirl glares into the night sky. As her captives scoff at her fragile state, she continues to wish for strength, swearing to be free one day. The next day, our protagonist notes how he can only use his telekinesis for 3 minutes, as it absorbs a huge amount of mana. Encountering a strange tentacle creature, our protagonist is suddenly pulled in, realizing that his mana is being drained, due to the monster's unique skill. Wanting that ability, our protagonist breaks free, killing the creature, gaining mana drain, along with the ability to float. With extended airtime, our protagonist takes on a centipede, cleanly chopping it up, only to realize that he's acquired enough cores to be granted 10 evolution points. With these points, he tries putting some in his MP, seeing his mana pool grow substantially. Next he puts some in attack power, seeing his damage spike. Now knowing a useful method to grow stronger, our protagonist gets pumped, but still feels very lonely. Having tracked down a goblin's nest, our protagonist swiftly begins dismantling his way into the epicenter of the nest. Having spotted the Goblin King, our protagonist launches himself at his enemy, decapitating and acquiring the king's skills. Spotting a goblin mage, our protagonist gets excited, as he kills and acquires the creature's magical capabilities. Having cleaned out the nest, our protagonist realizes that gaining the same skills multiple times instead evolves the already existing one to a higher level. This means that the person wielding him will appear, as if they were a master swordsman. Cutting to the catgirl, we see one of her colleagues being abused by the same captives. When the girl tries to step in, her masters force her to the ground, using the collar around her neck. The next morning, she attempts to attack her masters, but once again she's powerless, wishing to somehow acquire power to break free. Back with our protagonist, he has figured out that the further out he ventures, the stronger the creatures are. Able to enter Zone 4, our protagonist easily slays a dragon, making use of his regeneration to heal up after the scuffle. Next, our protagonist takes on several orcs, using fire magic to take out the swarm, even able to take on a monstrous alligator. Entering Zone 5, our protagonist stands off against a massive slime creature, which begins morphing in order to hide its core. But using a search skill, our protagonist locates the core, performing a unique skill, beelining it to the creature's core, ending the battle in seconds. Having acquired more evolution points, the skill to instantly regenerate and a way to store monster drops, our protagonist strives to get stronger. Spending time to face a snake, an earth tortoise, our protagonist has issues running into a saber-tooth. Noting the saber-tooth's increased speed, he's forced to increase his poison output, which allows him to finally slay the creature. Realizing that he's conquered Zone 5, he has no choice but to venture into the forest, searching for stronger opponents. Nonchalantly soaring through the air, our protagonist is suddenly pulled to the earth, mysteriously unable to fly. Attempting to pull himself up, our protagonist's MP is instantly drained every time he attempts to use any ability. After countless attempts, our protagonist remains lodged in the ground, crying out for help. As days go by, our protagonist grows desperate, growing stronger and stronger, but is incapable of freeing himself from the earth. As rain clouds begin to form, we cut to some slave traders, running from creatures chasing their carriage throughout the forest. To ensure their own safety, the slave traders choose to ditch the slaves, ordering them to distract and give up their lives. Unable to disobey orders, due to their collars, the catgirl helplessly watches as her colleagues get devoured, wishing to be free. As her collar is suddenly deactivated, she picks up a weapon, attempting to stop the rampaging beast, but is suddenly flung back. Knowing that this may be her last, she suddenly notices a mysterious sword, sticking out from the ground. Being beckoned closer to the sword, the girl suddenly converses with our protagonist, learning that he'll help her slay the creature, and in exchange she must pull him out. With no choice, the catgirl manages to pull out our protagonist, whilst barely dodging the wild beast's advances. As promised, our protagonist uses skill shares to lend the girl his strength. Moving together, the two begin maneuvering around the beast, only to slice up the creature. Suddenly, the catgirl's slave master appears, demanding that she hand over the sword, threatening to make her submit. But our protagonist intervenes, knocking out the slave trader, and breaking her collar and setting her free. Thankful to be free, our protagonist offers the little girl to become his wielder, warning her that it may be dangerous. But the girl accepts, vowing to grow stronger. Wanting to know her name, our protagonist learns that she wants to be called Fran, but realizes he himself doesn't have a name. Letting Fran decide, she chooses to call our protagonist Teacher. Throughout history, creatures have gotten stronger through evolution, but it's quite well known that black cats are incapable of evolving, with none able to achieve such a feat. Flashing back, we learn that Fran's parents had set out to be the very first of their kind to achieve evolution, but sadly they had failed, leaving Fran all alone. But now that she has a teacher, she has set her only mission in life, to achieve what her parents wanted for black cats. Having found a gathering of goblins, Fran shows her teacher her growth, easily dropping the creatures one after the other. Having taught her some magic, our teacher is impressed, noting her rapid growth, both in her magic and swordplay. Seeing her grow, our MC can't help but shed tears of joy, wanting to dedicate his life to help her out, but suddenly Fran picks him up, rushing off, as our MC questions what she is doing. Cutting to a traveling merchant, we see his cart is swarmed by goblins, beginning to close in on his goods. Before the goblins can cause any harm, Fran intervenes, slaying some of the creatures, whilst our MC emits a bright light, to scare off the remaining swarm. As some men come out of the carriage, our MC tells Fran to keep the fact that her sword can talk a secret, as our MC is using telepathy to communicate with her. As one of the men thanks Fran for the help, he offers to give her a ride, but our MC knows that they are asking for her protection on their journey. Accepting their request, Fran learns about the increase of monsters near the main roads, as greater creatures deeper in the forest have been scaring the lower-tier monsters out of the forest, and onto human-made roads. Realizing that it may be his doing, our MC continues to listen to the man, learning that a powerful S-rank creature had been slain in the past, but its mana still lingers, causing other creatures to spawn. Changing topics, Fran asks if the man has heard of a mysterious sword in the forest, trying to learn how our MC came to be, but sadly the man has never heard of such a thing. Bringing up how the goblins were likely G rank, the man compliments Fran, stating that she must be at least F rank. Wondering what he's talking about, the man explains that in this world, there are humans that are tasked with slaying creatures. The most dangerous of creatures are classified as rank S, whereas the weakest are classified as rank G. This is the same for adventurers. Wondering how she can become one, she learns that she must apply at a guild, which makes Fran grow excited, learning that she can earn money and eat delicious food. Cuddling our MC admires her childlike tendencies, whilst also able to train effortlessly to grow stronger. Having made it to the city of Alessa, Fran and our MC begin scouting the city, noting the countless people here. Seeing as they should head to the guild first, our MC begins inspecting other adventurers' swords, but grows depressed seeing as their weapons have a higher and rarer abilities compared to himself. But Fran cheers him up, showering him with praises, which only makes our MC want to help Fran even more. In the Adventurers Guild, the receptionist Nell greets Fran, noting her tiny stature. When Fran asks if she can register, Nell thinks about how small she is, warning Fran that adventuring is dangerous and that she must first pass a test. Accepting, Nell is surprised, but brings her to the examiner, Donadrand, an ogre. Immediately activating his intimidation skill, Donadrand begins the first test, which Fran passes, having remained calm. Knowing that Donadrand is Fran's most powerful opponent to date, our MC scans Donadrand, realizing his immense physical strength, but Fran still chooses to fight. With Nell starting the fight, Donadrand immediately pounces on Fran, forcing her to jump into the air, to avoid it. But Donadrand follows up, chasing and slashing at Fran, forcing her to continuously dodge and parry the blows. Knowing that Donadrand is too strong, our MC gives Fran some advice, whilst casting a spell to increase Fran's speed and strength. Meeting Donadrand head-on, Fran manages to get a cut in, but Donadrand simply begins regenerating. Fired up, Fran lays down a heavy slash, distracting Donadrand long enough to allow our MC to cast an earth-binding spell and shoot several fireballs. Bouncing off the wall, Fran ignites her blade, blasting Donadrand through the walls of the building. Seeing Fran cast spells without an incantation, along with her movement, Nell realizes that Fran is on par with other elite adventurers. Having defeated the examiner, Fran is brought to Klimt, the guild master, who begins questioning Fran on her amazing feats at such a young age. Instructed to keep her lips sealed, the guild master attempts to inspect her abilities, but our MC is able to nullify such an ability. Knowing that he can't dig any deeper, Klimt states that Fran is not scaring off his spirits, so he has no issues with her. Scanning Klimt, our MC notes Klimt's mastery of spirits, only for Klimt to issue Fran her adventure license. Asked to register her signature on a crystal, Nell asks about what class Fran would like to choose, shocked that Fran can choose from countless classes. As our MC tells Fran to choose the spellsword class, able to fight with both her sword and magic, Fran is given her license, proudly showing it off. Heading back to the reception table, Fran asks to sell some of her goods, which Nell is happy to trade for gold. Whipping out some mid-tier monsters, Nell and other adventurers are shocked to see so many corpses, nicely butchered and preserved. Awarded 195,000 gold pieces, our MC realizes that they'll be rich in no time. As Fran heads to pick out a room for the night, some nosy adventurers attempt to get her attention, but our MC instructs Fran to ignore them. Surrounding her, the adventurers demand that Fran hand over some of her earnings, believing that they had been unfairly given less gold, for the same monsters slain. But Nell steps in, stating that the adventurers were fairly given what they deserved. As compared to Fran, they had crushed and badly destroyed the monster corpse, which lowers the corpse's value. Before the adventurers can attack Nell, Fran steps in, forcing the adventurers to surround Fran. Beginning to insult Fran and her species, Fran suddenly cuts off one of the adventurers' legs, shocking everyone, having done it so quickly. Following up, Fran strikes, cuts and knocks down the remaining men, surprising our MC, as Fran had combined and figured out some skills, all by herself. Demanding that Fran be locked up, Nell steps in, stating that the men will be the ones in trouble, giving the men a petrifying glare. Wandering around the town in search of items to buy, our MC reminds Fran that her top priority as of this moment is to buy armor. Walking around, the two are sad that all the town's blacksmiths are currently booked, but suddenly a random dwarf sneaks up on them. Offering to hook Fran up with some gear, our MC scans the dwarf, realizing that he is no ordinary person, and is indeed an elite blacksmith that is quite prestigious. Guided up to the dwarf's home, townsfolk call out the dwarf's name, Garrus, pissed that such a weak-looking girl gets to purchase gear from Garrus. Knowing the men are trying to resell his crafts, Garrus tells Fran to ignore useless onlookers, as he only sells his gear to people he deems worthy, stating that he saw what Fran did to those scum back at the Adventurers Guild. Fitting Fran with some snug but powerful armor, resistant to all sorts of external magic and effects, our MC compliments Fran's new look. Happy with the new gear, our MC begins scanning the room, realizing that everything in this room is far rarer than he is. As Fran asks for permission to look at other swords, Garrus wonders why, as he reveals that he knows Fran's current sword is an intelligent weapon. Putting space between her and Garrus, Fran questions how he's able to tell, prompting Garrus to reveal that he has a unique skill, Godsight, which allows him to bypass our MC's skill protection and seeing some of our MC's hidden stats. As Fran and our MC communicate telepathically, Garrus deduces that they have the telepathy skill, putting the two more on edge. But Garrus diffuses the situation, stating that he's only curious and wants to only have a chat. Revealing himself, our MC asks about how Garrus knows he's a powerful sword, compared to some on his wall, surprising Garrus, as he realizes Fran nor our MC knows about mana conductivity. Taking a sword off the wall, with a higher attack than our MC, Garrus asks Fran to channel her mana through our MC, slicing the blade in Garrus's hand. Garrus explains that our MC are able to absorb mana, and in exchange, convert and add double the absorbed mana, as additional attack power. Since his mana conductivity is rank A, our MC is able to double 1000 mana points, meaning he's on par with the strongest swords Garrus has ever laid eyes on. Thanking Garrus for the intel, our MC is showered with compliments by Fran, but is interrupted, as Garrus wonders how our MC came to be. Not knowing himself, Garrus wonders if our MC was forged by a goldsmiths, capable of crafting tools, powerful enough to wipe out the world. But sadly this is all speculation. Changing topics, our MC personally requests for Garrus to craft him a unique sword, pulling out stored-up monster corpses, to help with resources to make the blade. Amazed at all the high-tier loot, Garu's eyes light up, as he begins thinking of what type of item he can craft. Apologizing for not having the money to pay Garrus, Garrus states that he'll craft our MC's blade for free, and on top of that he can even create a new set of armor, as a thanks for allowing him to play with all this valuable loot. Before they part ways, Garrus says that he can finish the sword in 3 days, but Fran's new armor may take longer. Heading to find other things to buy for their upcoming adventure, Fran is lured into a store, where a lady convinces her to try on some pretty clothes, only to leave satisfied with her purchase. Next, she visits a store to stock up on herbs and other goods, running into a huge man, manning the store. As our MC scans him, they find out that he was a mid-tier adventurer, but had decided to retire and set up shop. As it's already dark out, our MC offers to cook Fran a meal, but first they must find a place to stay. Having received her adventurer's card, they both note how easy it is to purchase things, as being an adventurer is almost like a status symbol. Making their way to the room, Fran is shocked at such a nice room, but our MC states that it is quite a simple room. Laying on the bed, Fran thanks our MC once again, embracing him, thankful that he's been guiding her all this time. Setting up the ingredients, our MC asks Fran what she would like, with her replying meat. Obliging, our MC begins mixing several spices together, coating some chicken in the spice mix, only to deep fry a batch of the chicken. As Fran digs in, she compliments our MC, only to dust off the plate, stuffed. Before they head to bed, they decide to strategize, wondering what our MC should put his evolution points in. Thinking for a bit, the two agree to have our MC level up his healing points, which will help Fran greatly in battle, but before our MC can chat further, Fran falls asleep, signaling an end to the day. The next day, Fran is tasked with a G-rank quest, which all involve herb-gathering tasks, but even for monster hunting quests, they involve fighting 3 goblins, the lowest-tier creatures. As our MC makes use of his innate knowledge of herbs, he notices Fran completely bored, but she suddenly hears fighting, rushing towards the noise. As 3 adventurers stand against a swarm of goblins, the 3 begin to wonder why so many goblins are here. From above, our MC is able to spot 13 goblins in total, with some being hobgoblins, stronger than normal goblins. Knowing that the 3 adventurers won't last any longer, Fran intervenes, shooting some fire arrows to draw the goblins' attention. Realizing that fire may harm the forest, they both agree to use earth magic, shooting several projectiles at the swarm. Dashing towards some goblins, Fran easily slays them, all whilst our MC shoots earth projectiles to take down some archer goblins. With a final big swing, Fran takes out the remaining hobgoblins, checking up on the injured adventurers, casting a healing spell. Praising Fran's battle senses, the adventurers realize that Fran is G rank just like them. As Fran turns to leave, the adventurers state that Fran should take the loot, but our MC instructs her to only take the valuable loot and leave the rest. Realizing that they were facing hobgoblins, the adventurers tell Fran that the appearance of hobgoblins usually means there is a goblin king nearby, and if the king successfully mates with a goblin queen, they'll be able to spawn endless goblins, making it a C-level threat. Ordering the adventurers to retreat and inform the guild, Fran begins heading deeper into the forest, seeing it as an opportunity to grow stronger. With every slash, Fran is able to slay a goblin, beginning to combo certain magic spells with her swordplay. But seeing as Fran is growing tired, she soon realizes that the goblins are not only increasing in size, but they are also beginning to work together. As Fran continues to swing her blade, she realizes that she may have underestimated her enemies, which continue to press her. Gripping her blade harder, she declares that she not only wants to borrow our MC's power to look strong, but wants to be able to masterfully use and grow her own unique skills, in order to overcome challenges. Hearing Fran's words, our MC realizes that he had been ordering and dictating Fran's path, but now he understands that he must only follow and assist what Fran chooses, not to choose what he believes is best for Fran. As the evening sun begins to set, we see Fran stand victorious against the initial swarm, having reached level 12 all by herself. Returning to Garrus, he's shocked to learn that Fran and our MC had just finished slaying hundreds of goblins, wanting Garrus to mend Fran's armor, so she can head back to the forest. Apparently, after slaying the first wave of goblins, Fran had discovered a cave where the goblins reside. But before Fran can dive in, our MC recommends they reset for now, and come back when they've rested. As our MC is collecting the goblins' crystal cores, they are startled by the adventurers Fran had saved, having brought reinforcements. Believing Fran to be at least D rank, Fran tells them about the goblin cave deeper in, which one of the dwarfs mentions that this wasn't here before. Deducing that the cave is as big as a dungeon, the adventurers recommend Fran report this to the guild master, whilst they stay and watch. Speaking to Donadrand and the guild master, Fran, with the help of our MC, is able to report her findings, and the amount of goblins she had slayed. But when she mentioned that none of the goblins had decided to retreat during the battle, the guild master became alerted, stating that the goblins that she had fought were most likely forced out of the cave, meaning that the other goblins within the cave must be far more dangerous. Asking Donadrand to assemble any adventurers that can immediately be dispatched to deal with the sudden goblin cave. Commending Fran's hard work, the guild master decides to promote her from G to F rank. Gathering around a mini altar, Garrus is able to instantly repair Fran's armor, charging her 10,000 gold. But due to the nature of the altar, it becomes more expensive with every repair, on the same beaten armor. Having never been in a dungeon, Garrus tells Fran that dungeons randomly spawn, being willed into existence by the god of chaos. Spawning a core randomly, a random monster is chosen to be the dungeon boss, along with the design and rewards of the dungeon randomly created as well. Before our MC departs, Garrus says that he will finish crafting the requested sword, before they enter the dungeon. As the two head to their rooms, our MC checks out Fran's newly acquired stats, having pushed herself physically, and had been exhausted through constantly using healing magic. Patting Fran on the head, our MC heads to the bath, but Fran tags along, loving baths as they remind her of her parents. Running into Nell, they have a chat, as Nell praises Fran's feat, learning that she'll be fighting in the upcoming raid on the Goblin Cave. Nell also mentions the Knights Brigade, knights meant to protect humans, but due to their captain hating adventurers, the knights had refused to help with the raid. Continuing, Nell wishes Amanda, an A-rank adventurer, and the strongest in the town were present, but sadly is investigating the mess our MC caused ages ago. Changing topics, Fran asks if Nell knows anything about the gods that govern this world, which Nell responds that she knows that there were 10 great gods consisting of the god of sun, moon, oceans, earth, fire, storms, forests, beasts, death, and finally chaos. Asking about how there is no god of war, Nell states that there used to be a god of war, but the god of war sadly was consumed by evil, attempting to rule over the other gods, but was ultimately slayed. The god of war's body was cut up, and spread across the world, with some of the gods' remnants, evolving into the very first fiends and goblins, making these creatures descendants of pure evil. Realizing that Fran had fallen asleep, our MC takes Fran back to her room, tucking her in, as he personally wonders how much more he can learn about this world. The next day, Fran and our MC greet Garrus, as Garrus presents our MC with the sword he had requested. Removing the sword and in place our MC will fit snugly in the case. As an added bonus, Garrus shows how our MC can use telepathy to unsheath himself, impressing our duo. Just like that, they head off, with Garrus wishing the two the best. At the meeting area for the raid, Fran can't help but hold her excitement, as Donadron begins making announcements. Stating that they have confirmed the base is filled with goblins, he states that their primary objective is to kill the king and queen, and then set their sights on the dungeon master and the dungeon's core. Before Donadron can say anything else, several goblins begin attacking the adventurers, forcing them to scatter and break formation. Wondering if the goblins had planned for this, our MC states that they should head in first and slay the incoming waves, to allow the adventurers outside to regain their formation. Moving closer to the cave, Fran notices several goblins back away, realizing that her new goblin killer title is quite useful. Helping out a pinned adventurer, our MC instructs Fran to ignore absorbing the crystal cores, until they are away from any adventurers. Making use of the Sabertooth's unique skill, our MC had slayed, Fran begins walking on air, moving closer to the cave. Enchanting her blade with flames, she begins blasting the entrance, cutting off the goblins from continuously flowing out towards the adventurers. Leaving the remaining goblins outside to Donadron and the adventurers, our MC and Fran make their way into the cave. Deep in the cave, we see a goblin, able to summon a mysterious creature. Seeing Fran run off alone, Donadron and a dwarf begin carving their way through the goblin swarm, using Fran's courageous acts as inspiration to catch up and not let her take all the glory. Back with Fran, we see her swiftly running deeper and deeper into the cave, all whilst our MC advises Fran to be more cautious in here than when she fought the goblins out in the forest. Easing Fran a bit, our MC states that in the worst-case scenario, they can easily use an expensive feather item they've purchased recently to instantly teleport to safety, but nonetheless, our MC loves how courageous Fran is. Running into some goblins, our MC splits his mind, beginning to instruct Fran on who to kill and who to leave for Donadron and the adventurers. Spotting two stronger ones, Fran severs their bodies, allowing our MC to absorb their crystal cores, whilst catching their corpses, to leave no mess behind. Leaving 3 for the others, Fran continues to evade and slay goblins as she dives deeper and deeper, to a point where our MC is able to point out how good Fran has become collecting the goblins' crystal cores. Happy that our MC praised her, Fran is forced to refocus, prioritizing the incoming goblins, whilst leaving the rest. Suddenly, Fran's path is thwarted by tens of goblins, with all the skills our MC already have. With no other choice, our MC steps up, splitting his mind, in order to cast 2 simultaneous fire javelin spells. Conjuring multiple fire projectiles, that on impact explode and take out the goblins blocking Fran. Praising our MC notes that he had tried to teach Fran this once but failed, but deduces that since he does not have a human brain, he's able to surpass what is humanly possible. Having reached a tunnel, leading down the cave, they realize that they've almost reached the 2nd floor, where the boss most likely will be residing. Using various skills, to locate incoming goblins, our MC spots 2 hobgoblins, which Fran scares away, tailing them to where the dungeon master could be. Now with Fran and our MC sensing a strange aura emanating from one of the cave's entrances, they both brace for what is to come. Cutting to Donadron and the adventurers, they all continue to chase after Fran, noting how she had left them a decent amount of goblins to keep them distracted, but is still quite little, compared to what they were expecting. As the dwarf wonders what this Fran girl is, Donadron states that Fran has a mastery of 7, making her a master and a high-tier adventurer for her age. Hoping that she does not overestimate her own abilities, they continue after Fran. Back with Fran, we see her perched above the entrance, able to spot the Goblin King and Queen. Reminded of when he had slayed a Goblin King, our MC notes that when the king is endangered, most of his underlings swarm around him, making it hard for Fran to engage immediately. Instead, our MC will bombard them with spells, allowing Fran to take out the king and queen, whilst they try to recover. Splitting his mind once again, our MC lights up the king and queen, allowing Fran to close in, but when the smoke clears, Fran is saddened to see our MC's fire spell wipe out not only the weaker goblins, but the king and queen too. With the remaining goblins fleeing, Fran wonders what else is there to do, but our MC says they should focus on slaying the dungeon master next, as they make their way through a mysterious door. As Fran happily trots through the gate, the door suddenly closes Fran in, forcing her to begin watching for danger. With different specks of light suddenly illuminating the room, our MC realizes that they are being attacked by hundreds of bugs, but they are quite low class. Using his telekinesis to hold the bugs still, our MC instructs Fran to slaughter all of them, treating them as bonus bugs, meant to easily increase her stats. With several minutes passing, our MC realizes that there are still too many, noticing that a bug leader is continuously spawning them, explaining the endless swarm. With our MC shooting spells to displace the leader, Fran follows up, severing the boss and ending the battle. Having acquired new skills and items from the swarm, the two suddenly notice another door, with a powerful presence behind it. Comparing the aura to creatures he's slayed, our MC notes that the aura may be greater than the rank C slime he faced in the forest. Realizing it would be best to prepare, our MC begins buffing Fran, giving her increased resistance, increased physical abilities, increased reaction speed, increased healing, and best of all, promises to make Fran curry, as long as she's able to make it out of this fight alive. Cautiously entering, Fran greets a mysterious creature, waiting all this time for our duo's arrival. With our MC scanning the floating creature, he realizes that they are looking at a greater demon, creatures that are at least rank B, able to take out an entire kingdom by themselves, with this one in particular having a skill steal ability. Believing Fran to be just a weak human, the demon gives Fran props for being able to make it all the way to it, but suddenly the dungeon master appears. Being a goblin that can talk, the dungeon master insults Fran, stating that their plan was to invade the kingdom, but since their goblin king is gone, they will have to resummon another one, using the dungeon cores as sustenance. As the demon silences the dungeon master, the demon brings out its blade, charging at Fran, who places 500 mana into our MC. Realizing that the demon has a similar mana conductivity skill, our MC realizes that the demon's blade would have cut right through him. As Fran and the demon clash swords, Fran uses a spell to disarm the demon, lunging at him, but the demon smirks, having returned his blade to his hand with a unique skill, only to smash Fran into the ground. Praising Fran's sword skills, the demon suddenly disappears, reappearing behind Fran, cutting off her hands. Seeing Fran in a moment of shock, our MC immediately dashes to Fran's side, casting a firewall to scare away the demon, as he reattaches Fran's hands. Apologizing for not reacting fast enough, Fran stares down the demon, as the demon wonders what type of skill Fran is using to navigate her sword so well. Disappearing, the demon begins playing mind games, slashing and disappearing suddenly. As Fran fends of the attacks, our MC figures out that the demon is using Fran's shadow. Ordering Fran to jump, she slashes the air, infusing it with poison, which is able to scratch the demon. Using this opening, the demon retaliates, shooting a spell of his own. Having dodged the demon's projectile, Fran realizes that the poison has little to no effect on the demon. Realizing that this boss may be too hard for Fran, our MC instructs Fran to leave with the feather item, but Fran refuses, wanting to grow stronger, and taste our MC's curry dish. As Fran charges the demon, she's able to evenly trade blows, but the demon suddenly uses his skill steal ability, stating that he has now taken Fran's sword ability, making him far stronger than Fran. Declaring that Fran is now powerless without her stolen swordsmanship skills, the demon rushes at Fran, but Fran miraculously evades, slashing the demon, surprising the creature, knowing that it had landed its skill still on Fran. Our MC deduces that since he is sharing all his skills, including the swordsmanship ability with Fran, the demon is unable to steal borrowed skills. Seeing that his demon summon may be at a disadvantage, the dungeon master summons some goblins to help defeat Fran. But before the goblins can attack Fran, the demon slaughters them all, demanding that the dungeon master nor anyone else intervene in its duel. Turning to Fran, The demon declares that it's done holding back, and that it would much prefer to head to the surface and slaughter humans. Channeling a dense dark spell, the demon begins compressing huge amounts of dark magic, aiming and blasting it right at Fran. Having heard the noise, Donadrond and the other adventurers try to break down the massive door, separating them from Fran. Having barely survived the impact of that powerful spell, our MC reasons that they stand no chance against the demon, as Fran is currently too inexperienced. Attempting to use the magic feather to escape, Fran stops our MC, stating that if they don't end things now, the demon will make its way to the surface and wreak havoc. Asking for our MC to lend her strength, Fran begins dodging projectiles the demons send at her, all whilst our MC thinks about the best option. Knowing that Fran is still remaining calm, even in the face of unbeatable odds, our MC can't help but lend Fran strength, wanting to see her grow. Assessing the demon's potential, our MC knows that the demon's level surpasses Fran, along with its mana pool, making it able to cast endless spells. On top of that, it seems to be very resilient to Fran's physical attacks, forcing our MC to dig deep, attempting to figure out the demon's weakness. At the same time, Fran pushes herself to the limit, as the demon continues to stain the battlefield with its dark magic explosions, able to knock Fran off her feet. With some advice from our MC, Fran gets up, continuing to evade and buy time for our MC to figure out a plan. Suddenly our MC realizes something suspicious. Although the demon is destroying the cave, trying to harm Fran, it seems as if the demon is avoiding hitting the dungeon master. Testing out his theory, our MC fires a spell at the dungeon master, which forces the demon to intercept the spell. Flashing back, Fran had learned from Donadron that upon the dungeon master's death, every creature along with the dungeon itself will cease to exist. Knowing what they must do, our MC simultaneously casts multiple fire javelin spells, bombarding the demon and the dungeon master, forcing the demon to go on the defensive. With some time to think, our MC knows that the demon's defense will last longer than their offense, therefore they must bet on their next attack to land. Telling Fran about the plan, Fran dashes forward, allowing the demon to attack multiple times, but this allows our MC to confirm that the demon has a 3-second cooldown between each magic spell. Using this opening, our MC orders Fran to toss him towards the dungeon master, all whilst she distracts the demon with fire. Sadly, the demon had anticipated Fran's movements, throwing up a barrier to protect the dungeon master, but in that split second, our MC changes directory heading straight towards the demon's core. Barely able to stop our MC from breaking its crystal core, the demon suddenly hears our MC speak, as our MC channels his remaining mana into himself, allowing him to cut right through the demon's core. With its core destroyed, the demon shrivels up, but since our MC had used up all his mana, he too begins to shatter. Rushing to our MC's side, Fran pulls what is left over of our MC's sword, clinging onto our MC for dear life. As she begins to weep, our MC destroys the mood, stating that he is able to easily self-regenerate, easily repairing his body with the demon's crystal core. Mad that the MC tricked her, Fran gives in, just happy that our MC is alive. Unable to accept that a little girl was able to slay such a powerful demon, the dungeon master looks to the core, hoping to gain more power, and expand its goblin army. Unfortunately, Fran uses the demon's sword, destroying the dungeon master summoning tool, whilst claiming the dungeon master bracelet item, said to be able to revive any creature one time. As the dungeon master gives up, the core begins to dim. The core suddenly shatters, returning the darkened room into its original state. Declaring that the dungeon had been conquered, Fran rushes over to Donadron and the others, filling them in on how she had cleared the dungeon. Noticing a corpse, one of the adventurers realizes that the corpse belongs to a B-rank demon, making Fran at least B-rank herself. Happy to see that Fran is okay, Donadron pats Fran on the head, only to grab hold of her, as he scolds Fran for being so reckless, not stopping until Fran shrivels up. Whilst Fran was getting scolded, our MC was admiring both Fran and his level ups, stating that Fran is now level 25, having doubled her level for 12. Asking if Fran is happy, she ignores our MC, stating that our MC just watched as she was being lectured, but our MC cheers Fran up, as he reminds her of the curry he'll be making tonight. Now in a good mood, Fran reasons that it would be best to level up their sword technique, seeing how useful it was, against a demon that had superior mana pool. Next, Fran asks about the skill steal ability, with our MC agreeing that the skill will be very useful, as it's able to be cast on creatures that don't have a crystal core, meaning other humans. Leveling it up to level 10, the skill steal ability now has a 100% success rate, but the drawbacks are that you can only steal one skill from any creature, and that it can only be recast every 432 hours. Wanting to try it out immediately, Fran stops our MC from stealing from an innocent adventurer. That night, Fran is forced to report on her recent dungeon raid, being the one to slay the dungeon boss. Thankful that Fran was able to mitigate any casualties the demon could have caused, the guild leader appreciates Fran handing over the demon's corpse, as it is quite rare material. But the guild master gets serious, demanding to know where the demon's crystal core, a top-tier item, is. Without a second wasted, Fran states that she had destroyed the core during the fight, forcing our guild master to not press any further. Before Fran can say anything more, a mysterious man busts in, declaring that Fran is lying. With a random stranger accusing Fran of lying, Fran can't help but be offended, all whilst our MC notes that he wasn't able to sense the strange man approaching until he spoke. Spraying some perfume, the man mentions how he dislikes speaking to commoners, revealing himself as the lieutenant of the knights that protect the town of Alessa, August Alzand. Realizing that August was the one that Nell despises, as he personally does not like to help commoners. It's revealed that August has a unique skill, able to tell when someone is lying, and August accuses Fran of lying. With the guild master believing August's lie, our MC notes something fishy, scanning August's stats. Noting that August has low physical stats, our MC sees that August has the skill, Essence of Falsehood. This skill states that it makes others believe the wielder's lies, meaning that August can accuse someone else, and the skill will make his lies more believable. Turning to the guildmaster, August demands that they hand her over, letting him deal with her. But the guildmaster denies this, stating that she is more powerful than most of the knights in this town. Backing off, August tries to get the guildmaster to forfeit the demon's drops, but the guildmaster fires back, stating that August will not receive any compensation, as he refused to assist with the dungeon raid. Trying to blame the guildmaster for his reason for not assisting in the raid, the guildmaster retaliates, accusing August of being the sole member to deny helping out with the raid, which August is forced to deny. As August and the guildmaster threaten each other with politics, Fran suddenly gets an idea, gifting August with a present from the dungeon. Seeing Fran's gift as nothing more than an insult, August throws away Fran's gift, which makes her consider killing August on the spot. But our MC calms her down, realizing that since August is a trash human being, they should use their new skill to steal, on this test subject. With both activating the skill at the same time, they both steal August's lying skill, along with a noble etiquette skill. Putting the skills to use immediately, Fran makes up a lie, which is blatantly false, but August struggles to respond, even fleeing before Fran's stolen skill can intimidate him further. As Nell makes her way into the conversation, the guildmaster apologizes for August's behavior, as he's the child of the noble that oversees the town, and that August's stats are purely from him forcing skilled adventurers to party and fight strong creatures, all whilst he stands idly by. Warning Fran to be careful of people like August, the guildmaster asks Nell if preparations for Fran are ready, which Nell confirms. Believing that this is for her ranking up, the guildmaster surprises Fran with a rank of D, apologizing for not getting her to rank C, as the officials didn't want someone ranking up so fast. Heading to the reception desk, loads of adventurers congratulate Fran, as she ranks up to D, and receives her pay for conquering the dungeon. Officially introducing himself, the dwarf reveals his name as Elevant, as other adventurers swarm and thank Fran for protecting them, asking about her feats in the dungeon. Not used to so many people praising her, our MC instructs Fran to buy everyone drinks, for fighting alongside Fran, as a cleanup crew during the dungeon raid. That night, whilst Fran is sleeping, our MC thinks about how if it weren't for Fran wanting to kill the demon would have wiped out this town, stating that he is proud of how much Fran had grown. The next day, the two head into the forest, setting up camp near a lake. Having acquired various ingredients and cooking utensils, our MC plans to fulfill his promise and make Fran curry. But first, our MC must prepare some extra meals in case they ever need to eat on an adventure. Simultaneously, our MC begins combining ingredients, instructing Fran on her duties, as they both chef up some beef patties. Before they get cold, our MC stores it in his dimension pocket, as time stops in the pocket, and the food will remain good to eat. Now for the main course, our MC and Fran work together dicing up vegetables, and tossing them along with spices into a pot, allowing the concoction to become curry. Having prepared some rice, Fran tries out the curry with rice, instantly freezing up, before exploding out of pure happiness. As they wrap up the meal, they head back to town, as the two spend the next week, taking on mediocre adventures, whilst they wait for Garrus to repair their gear. These quests consisted of tracking down valuable potatoes, acquiring rare meats for a noble, and slaying a creature to acquire more crystal cores. During their breaks, our MC would give Fran more curry, each time adding different spices and ingredients, along with changing the spiciness, asking for Fran's favorite combination. With constant trips, in and out of town, Fran naturally became friends with the gate guard, and one evening, the guard pulled Fran aside, telling her about a rumor he heard. Apparently, August has been looking for her, as ever since their meeting, August had caused trouble for his father and other nobles, and is blaming Fran for the issue. As they part ways, the guard tells Fran to be careful. As night falls, Fran makes her way through town, as she wonders if her stealing August's skills may have been the reason for him causing issues elsewhere. Suddenly, our MC senses that someone is following them, ordering Fran to not turn around, and instead to lead them to somewhere secluded. Ascending several stairs, our MC is able to confirm there are two stalkers. Right as they reach the top of the stairs, August appears, having climbed up the side, confronting Fran. Immediately noting his disgusting distorted appearance, our duo wonder if August is possessed, but our MC confirms that he is the same. Continuously itching himself, August blames Fran for the reason he's being hunted by other nobles, but Fran denies this, as August continues to blame her. Insulting Fran's race, August is able to get Fran's attention, continuously taunting her, only to call for Guron. Suddenly a mysterious person appears, exuding confidence, as he wonders what he will do with Fran. It's revealed that Guron is a blue cat, making him a mortal enemy of all black cats, including Fran. Angrily unsheathing our MC notes how he's never seen Fran this angry before, learning that the blue cats had betrayed her black cat's race. It was because of this betrayal that black cats are commonly captured and sold as slaves. Smirking, Guron scans Fran's stats, able to see that she's level 25. Apparently, Guron is considered a hero, making him quite powerful. Asking if Fran is afraid, Guron nonchalantly walks towards Fran, as Fran helplessly freezes up. Whispering into her ears, Guron announces that he knows Fran is scared, since the fear of blue cats are innately built into black cats, as blue cats are trained to hunt down black cats. Suddenly, Guron brings his blade down on Fran, forcing our MC to wake Fran up, barely blocking the strike. Our MC scans Guron's blade, realizing that the sword is far superior than the sword the demon they defeated had. Remembering a memory, Fran states that when she was traveling with her parents, they were betrayed by blue cats. Taking this chance, Guron knees Fran, knocking her right into a wall, where she helplessly lays there. Approaching slowly, Guron recounts a time when he had hunted down some black cats, purposely killing a little girl himself. Describing how he had mutilated and tortured the little black cat, Fran freezes up once again, allowing Guron to grab a hold of her, as he recounts the joy from watching others suffer. As Guron grinds his feet into Fran's skull, she begins to despair, reminded of how her slave owner treated her. But our MC speaks up, reminding her that everything is now in the past. What matters now is that she is an adventurer now, and our MC will never let anything harm her moving forward. With our MC by her side, she easily stands up, forcing Guron to berate her, as he swings his blade down. Easily fending off the swing, Fran questions Guron on how many black cats he had slayed, which prompts Guron to smile, taunting her as he states that he's slayed more than 10. Now with no remorse, Fran disappears, having cut of Guron's sword-wielding hand, only to take Guron's sword for herself. Storing away the stolen blade, Fran uses our MC to cut off one of Guron's legs. One limb at a time, Fran dismantles Guron, all whilst Guron wonders how Fran is stronger, even though he has a higher level. Before Fran is able to deal the finishing blow, our MC asks for Fran to allow him to do it, as he doesn't want Fran to have to take another's life. But hearing Fran's mature response, our MC allows Fran to continue, making her promise to only use him if she ever wants to kill another living thing. Storing away Guron's corpse, Fran wonders if they should kill August, but suddenly a blue blob appears, which belongs to the Guildmaster. Guided to the Guildmaster, Fran wonders what the blue blob is, which infuriates the Guildmaster, stating that they are fairies, quite prestigious beings. Catching himself before he goes too far, the Guildmaster asks that Fran refrain from killing August, as the Adventurers Guild had been secretly hunting him down, at the request of his father. Additionally, August will be locked up for offending other nobles, and that this matter should be kept a secret. In exchange, the guild will personally pay Fran a reward for finding August herself. Heading out to collect her reward, Fran suddenly bumps into a voluptuous lady, who suddenly jumps onto Fran, pulling Fran into her breast, as she calls Fran her daughter. Shocked at first, our MC realizes that Fran's mother has passed away, and that this lady isn't even a black cat. Refusing to let Fran escape, due to Fran's cuteness, our MC wonders why Fran doesn't just escape, which Fran notes that the lady is really strong. Before the lady can kiss Fran, the Guildmaster asks for her to stop, revealing her as Amanda. Introducing her, Amanda is an A-rank adventurer, and the strongest in the guild. As our MC scans her stats, he's stunned to see her overwhelming capabilities, being half-elf as well. Knowing Fran's name, Amanda states that rumors of Fran's great deeds have spread. Having returned from investigating something, Amanda chats with the Guildmaster as Fran leaves, but not before Amanda says they'll meet again. The next day, Fran continuously runs into Amanda, whilst doing simple quests, studying in the library, or even sleeping. Walking through town, Fran can't help but notice Amanda stalking her, rushing to Nell for some advice. But Nell reassures Fran that Amanda has no ill intentions, having opened her own orphanage to take care of children less fortunate. As Fran feels drained from avoiding Amanda all day, Amanda suddenly appears beside Nell, asking about what they had been talking about. Seeing Amanda for the first time, other adventurers can't help but stare at her, as they gossip about the A-rank adventurer. Scaring them off, with a powerful glare, Amanda turns her attention back to Fran, offering Fran the option to call her mother, only to be rejected once again. Finally getting down to it, Amanda states that the Guildmaster wants to see Fran, which allows Fran to leave. Entering the Guildmaster's room, Fran is clearly annoyed, having been forced to speak to him multiple times now. Revealing a bag of rare crystals, the Guildmaster says he's willing to give Fran 2 crystals if she investigates a spider's nest nearby. Demanding to be paid 10 crystals, the Guildmaster and Fran negotiate back and forth, but when the Guildmaster refuses to give Fran what she wants, Fran simply leaves, forcing the Guildmaster to agree to 5 crystals. Asking to be paid up front, Fran also asks why she is being asked specifically for this quest, leading the Guildmaster to reveal that people are accusing Fran of cheating her way into rank D, and that they believe the Guildmaster is playing favorites. Knowing Fran completing a D-rank quest will silence the haters, Fran agrees, as the Guildmaster adds that he'll help Fran enter a quest she had been looking for. Suddenly Amanda breaks down the door, having eavesdropped on their conversation. Demanding to join Fran, she makes up the excuse that there are too many men around Fran, and she will personally even out the numbers. With no choice, the Guildmaster agrees. That night, Fran asks about the spider dungeon they'll be visiting, with our MC stating that the dungeon has already been cleared, so they will most likely not run into any powerful creatures. Changing topics, our MC brings out the 5 crystals, only to absorb them, as he gains skills belonging to the D-rank and C-rank creatures he's never heard of before. Having made it to the meeting point, Fran is embraced by Amanda, all whilst the other adventurers glare at Fran. Suddenly Cruz Rissell speaks up, announcing that the investigation into the spider's nest will act as a rank-up test for 2 separate C-rank parties. Cruz so happens to be the leader of one of them, the Azure Guardians, with a mage and bandit as his companions. Pointing to the other part, Cruz asks that they introduce themselves, prompting Crad, leader of Dragon's Roar, to introduce himself and his party of E-ranks. Next up, an elf, another group, and finally Amanda introduce themselves. While everyone stares at Amanda, they all wonder why an A rank is joining such a low-tier quest. Finally Fran introduces herself, which catches the attention of Crad, happy to have finally found the girl that had been alleged of doing things with the guild master, in order to rank up so fast. Continuing to berate Fran with accusations, Crad accidentally insults Amanda, forcing Amanda to intervene, as she puts Crad to sleep. Waking up, Crad apologizes to Amanda, but demands that a little girl should run back to her family, only to learn that Fran's parents are dead. Breaking up the conversation, Cruz announces that Amanda will only be observing the exploration of the dungeon, stating that the dungeon is filled with crystals that they must collect. Additionally, they are to slay any monsters that cross their paths, but they must keep some alive, as the dungeon feeds off the creatures, or else the dungeon may disappear. Beginning their trek as a group together, our duo learn that dungeons without a core purposely create monsters and crystals in order to keep the dungeon alive. This means that adventurers can farm these crystals, just like what they are tasked with now. Along the way, Crad tries to start trouble with Fran, but Fran ignores him, as Amanda is forced to step in. Having fooled around all day, Cruz notes that they'll have to set up camp, as the sun is already setting. Gathering around the campfire, they learn of their order in which they must keep watch, with Amanda free from watch, as she's simply an observer. As Fran sits alone, Crad sneaks up on her, taunting her, as she wonders how Fran used connections to get to where she was. Following our MC's orders, she ignores Crad, but when he begins to mock her sword, Fran can't help but accept. As the other adventurers stand watch, Crad channels his dragon spirit, growing his overall power temporarily. Knowing that monsters could sneak up on them whilst they battle, our MC instructs Fran to put up 2 elemental barriers simultaneously, but this catches the attention of everyone. Not knowing what Fran had done, Crad readies his spear. He lunges at Fran, who easily evades and parries. Performing his ultimate technique, Fran manages to read the hidden strikes, catching Crad off guard, allowing her to cut off the tip of Crad's spear, as she kicks him to the ground. As punishment for insulting her teacher, she uses the handle of her sword to beat Crad to a pulp. With his party forced to intervene and drag Crad to safety, our MC states that this will show to the others, not to mess with Fran. Suddenly Amanda asks if she would like to spar, making up the excuse of being bored. Seeing this as a golden opportunity, Fran accepts, but states that if she wins, Amanda must stop following her. Seeing Fran's confidence, Amanda states that if she wins, Fran must call her mother. Before the duel begins, Amanda unveils her weapon, a whip made out of dragons, with the ability to change its gravity. The moment the duel starts, Amanda's whip disappears, barely scratching Fran on the cheek, before Fran manages to dodge. Able to move closer, with each dodge, Fran suddenly pulls her blade away from the whip, as Amanda praises her battle instincts. Our MC explains that Amanda had intended to wrap her whip around Fran's blade, and with her superior physical strength, would have stolen Fran's weapon. Picking up the pace, Amanda forces Fran further back, but Fran uses the terrain to rush Amanda, even dodging several sneak attacks from the whip. But before Fran can land a blow, Amanda uses the handle of the whip to easily fend off Fran, showing off her absolute defense, no matter the fighting distance. Stepping up the difficulty, Amanda channels mana into the whip, allowing her to have superior control of the whip, along with its speed and power. Forced to move further away from Amanda, Fran notes that she should put her all into the next strike, as she is beginning to fatigue. Casting wind magic to propulse herself towards Amanda, Fran splits her mind, simultaneously channeling a fire spell, as she continuously casts wind magic for movement. Even when she's struck at a vital point, Fran readies her blade to cut down Amanda, but unfortunately Amanda puts up a powerful wind barrier, blowing Fran away. Suddenly Amanda turns to Fran, realizing that Fran had finished casting her fire spell, whilst her mind was split. Landing cleanly on Amanda, Fran is blown back, as the others rush to check up on Amanda. Out of the flames, Amanda appears, unharmed, all whilst Fran collapses. Our MC scans Amanda, realizing that she had a unique skill that could block any one attack, once a day, but Amanda admits that Fran had surprised her. As the other adventurers put out the surround fire from Fran's spell, Amanda heals Fran, laying her on her lap, as our MC notes how far Fran has come. Still asleep, Fran sees her mother in her dreams, only to wake up to Amanda, taking her mother's place. Learning that she had been out for some time, Fran praises Amanda's overwhelming strength, as Amanda reciprocates the compliment. Just then Amanda reminds Fran of their agreement, which Fran wants to fulfill, but simply can't bring herself to acknowledge someone else as her mother. Seeing Fran struggle, Amanda pulls Fran in, apologizing for teasing her too much, and that it's okay if Fran refuses to call someone else her mother. Our MC notes that he checked to see if Amanda was lying several times, with his unique skill, but he can confirm that Amanda has yet to deceive Fran. The next day, Fran apologizes to Cruz and the others for causing so much trouble, but Cruz reveals that the others after seeing Fran's fight had challenged Amanda themselves, with none of them lasting as long as Fran. With the dungeon's gate now opened, they all agree to stick together, making their way through a long tunnel, only to appear out the other end. Seeing the run-down state of the dungeon, they all agree to be careful, as the knocked-over pillars of the dungeon may act as hiding spots for the spiders. Assigning Dragon Roar as the lead group, their task is to search for items, whilst dispatching any incoming creatures. Next, the remaining people, excluding Cruz's party, are assigned as rearguard, tasked with focusing on watching the flank. As Amanda walks with Fran along the dungeon, Amanda talks about how this dungeon brings back memories, revealing that when Amanda was still a noob, this dungeon was all everyone could talk about. Apparently, everyone wanted to be the first to conquer the dungeon, but unfortunately the dungeon had taken many adventurers' lives, forcing Amanda to open up her orphanage, to help the children that lost their parents to this dungeon. Suddenly Crad demands that everyone focus up, as spiders begin appearing out of nowhere. Recognizing their weak level though, Crad gets fired up, as his party clear up spiders blocking the front. Cutting to the others, Cruz and several other adventurers have no problem dismantling the attacking spiders. A lone archer is ambushed by the spiders, having been caught and immobilized by the creature's thick web. Luckily she's freed by the others, who state that the webs are flammable, and in a worst-case scenario, fire can easily set someone free. As they begin harvesting the spider webs, Fran can't help but get offended, as everyone asks that Fran refrain from burning up the valuable spider webs. Heading down a floor, the gang run into other types of creatures, but once again they make light work of the creatures. In the meantime, Fran begins asking Amanda questions about the difference between arts, skills and magic. Happy to see that Fran trusts her, Amanda happily replies that arts are the enhancement of physical skills, by channeling mana through a person or an item. An example is what Amanda did channeling mana through her whip, or Fran boosting her sword attack. Amanda states that arts are normally learned through luck, as they tend to appear after lots of practice. This is why it helps to be guided by a teacher, which Fran sternly agrees with. Making their way to the third floor, they all notice the abundance of empty rooms, but Crad accidentally triggers a small trap. Barely avoiding it, Cruz announces that traps will be frequent on this floor, causing everyone to linger around, and trigger multiple other annoying traps. As Cruz asks one of his party members to disable the traps, Fran gets curious about skills, as she watches Cruz's party members easily disable various traps. Amanda states that skills vary greatly, but they come in 3 rarities: common, unique and bonus. Moving on to magic, Amanda reveals that the 4 basic elements that exist in this world are earth, wind, fire and water, but the enhanced forms of the 4 are land, sea, inferno and storm. Amanda states that someone must have an affinity for an element before they can use it. One way of checking would be to surround yourself in the element, but if you are unable to be one with an element, it's no use. As the gang reach a door, guarded by tons of spiders, they all agree to work together to bypass the spiders. In the meantime, Amanda adds that if someone has 2 magical affinities, they can combine them to form compound elements, which include ice, life, thunder, sand and metal magic. Since Fran is able to use wind and fire magic, she may be able to learn thunder as a compound magic, but Amanda is still amazed that Fran can use 3 types of magic. Taking a break on a safe point on level 4, Fran shares her curry with Amanda, showing that she now trusts Amanda. Asking if there is any more magic, Amanda utters that there is light and dark magic, but these are affinities rarely seen in humans, and instead by monsters. Light is used to cleanse and create illusions, whilst dark magic is used as poison or necromancy. Wondering if dark magic signals an evil creature, Amanda reassures Fran that she personally knows a human who wields dark magic, and they seem alright, but may act weird sometimes. Overloaded by information, Amanda says that Fran shouldn't worry too much about the details, but our MC notes that he's personally able to perform a lot of what Amanda claims only monsters can do, having absorbed so many skills himself. As they wrap up their break, Crad talks about how easy the exploration has been so far, but Cruz and his gang state that from floor 5 onwards, the difficulty ramps up. All whilst the others learn about the possible things that lie in wait past floor 4, Fran turns to our MC, begging to learn thunder magic, but our MC ignores her. Putting on a cute face, she convinces our MC to level up their fire and wind magic to level 10, unlocking Inferno, Storm and finally Thunder magic. Entering floor 5, the abundance of creatures increases dramatically, causing each adventurer to begin casting stronger spells, whilst working together to kill the swarms, but also help heal the injured. With only the final floor left, Cruz orders the archers to assist the frontline adventurers, as they leave the dungeon core active, but gather as many crystals as they can. As they begin to farm the creatures, one of the adventurers begins to fall ill, unsure why the poison antidote is not working. Our MC scans him, ordering Fran to not only heal him, but to announce that these spiders are far more lethal than the ones they've been fighting. Knowing that they weren't prepared to face these peculiar spiders, Cruz assesses the situation, making the executive decision to retreat, and asking for Amanda to assist with the retreat. Knowing that they can regroup at floor 5, they run into spiders blocking their way, with some of the adventurers being hit with confusion poison. Chasing after the confused adventurers, Fran accidentally is teleported away with 2 other adventurers, via a trap. Suddenly, our MC realizes that he had been separated from Fran, as the trap not only triggered a teleportation, but also disarmed those caught in the trap. Picking up our MC, Amanda rushes to the endpoint of all teleportation traps, but realizes that Fran is not there. With fear on her face, Amanda realizes that they may be facing a high-tier trickster spider, all whilst Fran thinks about how she can't perform any spell or skills without our MC. Just then the trickster spider appears, grinning from ear to ear, as it begins setting off traps it had set up, first shooting projectiles, only to blast the 3 with an explosion. Back with Amanda, she fills in the other adventures on what a trickster spider is, having evolved by itself, or artificially. Knowing that Fran and the others will be helpless without their weapons, they all decide they should split up into groups of 3. With Cruz's party partying with Crad's group, Amanda by herself, the remaining adventurers form a group. Before they set out, they all agree, upon locating the trickster spider, they should be careful of traps and retreat when necessary. As the 3 groups split up, Cruz's group begins tearing down doors, as they all realize that there are no traps in the southeast side of the floor. Following Amanda, she places our MC down, performing a noise collector spell, attempting to listen to any signs of Fran, with her wind magic. With no luck, our MC began to worry as well, as he had been casting search spells continuously, but nothing came up. As everyone continues to search, they grow more agitated, due to the vast intertwining paths of the dungeon. As Amanda rushes deeper into the dungeon, she once again attempts to listen to any signs of Fran. Our MC begins to think about anything he can do to locate Fran, splitting his mind to double his thinking power. As he scrolls through his unused skills, he realizes that he has the ability to summon a creature to help with the search. The only issue is that Amanda will figure out he's an intelligent weapon if he does. In the meantime, Fran is continuously hit with several traps, unable to defend. Knowing that Fran's life is far more important than his secret, he looks into the summon skill, learning that he may summon any type of wolf, wondering which type would help find Fran the fastest. Recommended an onyx wolf, our MC learns that the wolf can detect other creatures. With no other choice, our MC decides that he'll use all of his MP, if it means he can keep Fran safe. With a summoning circle appearing behind Amanda, she swiftly turns around right as the onyx wolf appears from a portal. As Amanda wonders where it came from, our MC attempts to communicate with the creature telepathically, but it seems to disobey, suddenly conjuring dark magic. Seeing this, Amanda readies her whip to slay the creature, but is shocked when the creature suddenly attacks Fran's sword. Believing that it's not hostile, she decides it should be best to get rid of the creature, but suddenly hears a voice from the summoner. With our MC communicating with Amanda telepathically, he convinces Amanda to spare the wolf, as he intends to use the wolf to find Fran. As the wolf slowly approaches our MC scans the wolf, realizing the creature is in pain, having been summoned with too much mana, and it's because of this pain that the creature feels hostile to its master. Forced to fly away, Amanda wonders if our MC had named the creature, as she had heard that naming a summon is meant to establish a strong bond between summon and summoner. Asking his head voice, our MC gets confirmation that naming the summon is a good idea to tame it. Forced to come up with a name, our MC deems the onyx wolf, Jet. As the creature rushes our MC calls out to Jet, suddenly halting Jet in place, as the creature begins to evolve. With a connection between our MC and Jet, Jet has grown more powerful, having increased MP, but also a boost in skills. Wondering if naming things has a significant effect on creatures in this world, our MC feeds Jet Fran's scent. Jet begins to sniff Fran out. Grabbing our MC, Jet rushes to a blocked-off passage, but before smashing into it, Jet steps through the ground, moving past the blockage by stepping through shadows. As Amanda follows the Jet, we cut to Fran, completely defeated and slumped. As hundreds of spiders begin to surround her, Fran begins to despair, asking for our MC to rescue her. As she sinks into a dreamlike state, she suddenly sees her master, telling her to not give up. Inspired, she rushes to the two other adventurers' side, stomping and punching the surrounding spiders, stating that she can still continue, as long as she has arms and legs. Even though she is poisoned, she continues to stand strong, if it means that she can make a difference in this new life that she has been given. As Jet rushes through the hallways, he makes use of his trap detection skill, nonchalantly leaping past the traps, all whilst Amanda follows close. Running into a dead end, our MC instructs Amanda to blow a hole in the wall, revealing a hidden passage, completely filled with webs and spiders. Knowing that the others may have trouble, our MC chooses to go in first. Cutting to Fran, she begins drawing the attention of the trickster spider, trying to spare the other two adventurers, taking several hits from the trickster spider, and falling into the creature's traps. But she does not fall, as she wants to make our MC proud. As Fran stands up once again, completely beaten, she leaps onto the trickster spider, as the spider attacks Fran. Before she can be hit, our MC bursts past Fran, cutting the creature and scaring it away. Happy to see her teacher, our MC instantly heals her, glad to see that Fran is alive. As Fran embraces our MC asks her to be careful as he's still hot from propelling himself too fast, but Amanda interrupts their moment, showering Fran with lots of motherly love. Realizing that there is a wolf with them, Fran learns that our MC had summoned a furry friend to help find her. Seeing such a furry creature, Fran can't help but adore Jet, but Amanda interrupts, demanding to know why Fran's sword can speak. But she suddenly changes her mind, not wanting to force Fran to reveal any secrets she doesn't want to share. Fran disagrees as she trusts Amanda, revealing how she discovered our MC, and that he's an intelligent weapon. Amazed by our MC, Amanda is grateful to have laid eyes on an intelligent weapon, and is gleeful that Fran trusts her. Knowing that they should report back to the others, Fran heals up the other two adventurers, heading back. With Amanda carrying one of the men, Fran riding Jet, and Jet carrying the other man, they all make it back to their meeting point, but notice no one is back. Wondering if they should go look for them, they all suddenly hear the roar of the trickster spider, suddenly turning to face a mysterious white owl. Cutting to Cruz's party, we see them in a mysterious place, fighting for their lives, as hundreds of spiders surround the squad. Apparently they had stumbled onto a teleportation trap, but luckily still have their weapons, but things become hopeless, when most of their members are either poisoned, or immobilized by spider web. Suddenly Cruz attempts to lift everyone's spirits, cutting free some of the webbed party members, but they soon realize that they are all out of antidote for the poisoned members. To make things worse, they accidentally set off a trap, causing a massive boulder to begin rolling towards them, with no one capable of stopping it. Just then the boulder is cut to pieces, allowing Fran and the others to make their appearance after the debris had cleared. As Cruz and the others rush to greet Fran and the others, they all are relieved, as Fran and Amanda begin healing and retrieving the remaining webbed adventurers. Following up, Fran lights up the area, incinerating the countless spiders, as Amanda follows her lead, shredding apart the creatures with her wind magic. Cutting to the elf. Apparently, the white owl was one of the elf's guardian spirits, sent to search for help. Having cleared up most of the spiders in the surrounding area, Fran spots the trickster spider, hiding near the back, as it hoped to feed on Cruz and his party. Spotting Fran, the trickster spider orders the remaining spider to lend some web, forming a shield to protect itself from Fran. Seeing this, the elf uses the time to call upon his owl spirit guardian, imbuing everyone with a stat boost. With Cruz in control, he orders the adventurers to clean up the spiders, asking Fran to focus on the trickster. Shooting a fire spell, Fran easily removes the trickster's web shield, forcing the trickster to order its remaining spiders to swarm and distract Fran, as it flees. Seeing this as the perfect opportunity, our MC instructs Fran to try out her thunder magic, easily bursting out of the swarm, and hitting the trickster dead on. Although thunder magic deals barely any damage, it has the ability to paralyze the target, allowing time to follow up with other attacks. As Fran waits for the trickster spider to make its next move, she is blown off her feet, as the spider suddenly unleashes a caged web attack, blowing away everything in its surrounding. Watching the entire fight, Amanda remembers back to when two black cat orphans, Keenan and Fromare, both wanted to become adventurers. But she had refused, wanting them to live long lives, but because of this, something happened to them. Seeing Fran reminds her of them, and Amanda does not want to make the same mistake. Channeling a powerful wind spell, Amanda easily rips apart the trickster spider, running to Fran, to check up on her. Instead of gratitude, Fran becomes annoyed, wanting to slay the spider herself. Just then, Cruz and the others discover a tunnel, most likely leading to the core room. Entering the room, they all immediately note the abundance of crystals, as they are given bags to collect as much as possible. Wondering if they should destroy the core, as the dungeon may cause issues for other C-rank parties, they reason that they should leave the dungeon for now, and report their encounter with a trickster spider first, before jumping to conclusions. Wrapping up their exhibition, they set up camp back outside, as Fran chats to Amada privately. Explaining her reason for intervening with Fran's fight with the trickster, Amanda reveals that she knew two black cats, just like Fran, who wanted to evolve, but sadly they failed, disappearing. Not wanting Fran to disappear, Amanda asks Fran not to burden herself too much, moving forward. With everyone heading back to town, Fran reports her adventurer to the guild master, apologizing for not being able to achieve anything significant. But the guild master disagrees, as dueling Amanda, surviving a teleportation trap, and summoning a C-rank familiar, Jet, are all huge accomplishments. Satisfied with Fran's work, the guild master agrees to allow Fran entrance into the Ultimate dungeon. Before Fran leaves, the guild master thanks Fran for her work, knowing that she'll be leaving town soon, and that she should update her class, if it's the last thing she does. Meeting up with Nell, Fran chooses to update her current class to a more elite one, choosing Battle Mage. Next up, Fran heads to Garrus, equipping her new armor, which apparently have been named. Garrus tells Fran that naming things increases the item's stats, but also gives it divine protection. Just then, our MC calls out Garrus for crafting such exposing clothes, but Garrus reassures our MC that black cats use their exposed skin to help sense the surroundings. Additionally, Garrus picks up a hammer, bringing it down on Fran, revealing that Fran's armor has the ability to completely nullify attacks, up to certain attack power. Garrus adds that due to Fran's black cat race, her armor also has the ability to prevent instant death. Before they part ways, Garrus thanks Fran for keeping him busy with all the material she's given her, but he surprises the two by revealing that he'll be moving to Ultimate, just like our duo. Since dwarfs can't swim, he'll be taking a different route from Fran, but hopes to meet up in Ultimate. That night, Amada speaks with the herb shopkeeper, revealed to be one of Amanda's orphans she had raised. Asking if anyone interesting visits him, the shopkeeper talks about how Fran comes occasionally to load up on spices, making Amanda smile. Amanda reveals that she had raised two black cats, allowing them to forge their own paths, but after the cats went off on their own, they had passed, leading Amanda to believe that if she had trained them, maybe they would still be alive. With the next day arriving, Fran is greeted by everyone she had met, whilst staying in this town. As they all wish her well, Fran says her final goodbyes to Amanda, boarding jet as they ride off. Before she leaves, Fran, as a parting gift, calls out Amanda as her mother, which triggers a memory. Apparently, the two black cats that Amanda had helped out had given birth to Fran, making Amanda tear up, knowing that she was able to lay eyes on the child of two of her beloved children. The series ends with the reveal that the elf that accompanied Fran to the spider dungeon was placed by the guild master to investigate the reason for Fran's power. Having used his spirit owl to read Fran, they conclude that she indeed is a good person with huge potential. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like and comment.